Ever wish you could get a second attempt at an awkward convo, or maybe run a whole day back, just do it better? Yeah, I feel you. And in case you haven't heard, Madam Web is the latest superhero in the Sony Spider-Man Universe, and she can literally see the future. And then, do something about it. Of course, in her case, it's about spotting an evil baddie and saving people's lives, not just doing a better job of talking to a crush. But hey, we all have our battles. I thought I'd take a look at what we know so far about all the battles, emotional and literal, in this upcoming flick. So let's start with something maybe we shouldn't be that concerned with, but totally are: the movie's runtime. These days, it's a big deal when a movie has a notable runtime. Killers of the Flower Moon, I'm looking at you. The Madam Web runtime was leaked recently, and it's coming in at 116 minutes, just a few shy of a full 2 hours. Now, it's not that notable that a superhero movie would have a longer runtime, but it's notable that it's the longest, so far, of the assorted flicks in the Sony Spider-Man universe. Morbius clocked in at 104 minutes, while Venom: Let There Be Carnage was a mere 97 minutes. So maybe it's a hint that Sony is liking what they're seeing and willing to keep it lengthy? So who is Madam Web, and what's this movie about? Well, for starters, the powers that be are doing the usual routine of keeping a tight lid on most things about the movie. So what we know so far comes mostly from the comics and the trailer. In the comics, Madam Web first arrived in 1980. In Amazing Spider-Man number 210. She's a mutant with the ability to see into the future. And while she doesn't have the same Spidey powers that Peter Parker has, she's been in and out of the Spider-Man narrative ever since. Her alter ego is Cassandra Webb, who, in the movie at least, is a paramedic in NYC, and she's played by Dakota Johnson.
Essentially, Madam Web is a standalone universe.
Early in the trailer, Cassandra realizes she can see into the future, though it seems to be strictly about dangerous and deadly things coming, not like the lottery numbers. When's that movie coming, Sony? She sees an evil baddie walk onto the subway and start attacking 3 girls, so she quickly convinces them to jump off the train before that can happen. What unravels is a battle against this bad guy named Ezekiel Sims and played by Tahar Rahim, as he comes after the 4 gals in various ways. And of course, Cassandra, aka Madam Web, uses her precognition abilities to their advantage, though from the looks of it, she might have some physical powers too. Speaking of physical danger, Dakota seemed to take to the dangerous elements of filming. She talked about how she did her own stunt driving, at least for one day of shooting, and according to her, it went great. She said, quote, "I drove an ambulance, I drove a taxi cab, I drove everything in the movie except for flying through the air and out of a building. But other than that, I'm like, watch out, Tom Cruise." Sure, makes sense. Johnson is joined by a fun cast of young actresses, including Sydney Sweeney as Julia Carpenter. Now, fans of the comics know that name. Julia's alias is Spider-Woman, so that puts an interesting spin on things, yes? Further comic aficionados might note that, at least in the comics, she actually becomes Madam Web at one point, so maybe that's down the line in a sequel or two. Then there's Isabella Merced playing Anya Corazon, aka Aranya, as well as Celeste O'Connor playing Maddie Franklin. And yes, if your particular Spidey sense is tingling as you hear those character names, you're not alone. Those are both the names of characters who have also been Spider-Woman or Spider-Girl. This is likely not a coincidence, people, and it's even hinted at during the trailer. At one point, Ezekiel Sims references what these girls all become, and apparently he's fighting to make sure that doesn't happen. And it wouldn't be a blockbuster superhero movie if it didn't also have some famous names playing smaller parts too. Adam Scott, Zosia Mamet, Mike Epps, and Emma Roberts all make appearances. If you've ever watched BTS footage of a Marvel or Sony Spider-Man movie, you know that a lot of it is done with a colored screen in the background. Often it's green, sometimes blue. No big issue there. But jumping in front of those things for the first time as an actor is still a daunting task. Dakota found this out pretty quickly and discovered she had strong opinions about it. In an interview with IndieWire, she said, quote, "I've never really done a movie where you are on a blue screen and there's fake explosions going off, and someone's going, 'explosion,' and you act like there's an explosion." Dakota even referred to the process as absolutely psychotic. She kept wondering if the movie was going to be any good, and at the same time hoping she was doing a decent job of acting in front of the nothingness of the blue screen. Though it wasn't all scary in a bad way. She was asked about it last year and said,
"It was a wild experience. I learned so much.
I'm sure there will be one day coming soon where a flood of interviews and info about Madam Webb gets released, but until then, they're being the usual level of tight-lipped. Here's Sydney when she was asked about it last year.
Say anything. I can't say anything.
Same goes for Dakota when an interview tried to squeeze out any info possible.
I can tell you pretty much nothing. I can tell you nothing.
Dakota has at least talked about what her indie and small film experience brought to Madam Webb.
I can bring maybe some stuff from that I want to see in them.
And she also literally brought along certain crew members from her indie film Cha-Cha Real Smooth to Madam Webb.
People from Cha-Cha, a team of people that make movies.
I don't know about you, but I feel like at this point, I can see into the future also and say I'm gonna be seeing Madam Webb. Fine, so that's not exactly a superpower, but it's a solid prediction. Have any thoughts about this upcoming movie? Pop them in the comments section.